start the game. I move my pawn from e2 to e4. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from e2 to e4. I move my pawn from e7 to e5. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from e7 to e5. I move my knight from g1 to f3. Your turn.
You moved your knight from g1 to f3. I move my knight from b8 to c6. Your turn.
You moved your knight from b8 to c6. I move my bishop from f1 to c4. Your turn.
You moved your bishop from f1 to c4. I move my bishop from f8 to c5. Your turn.
You moved your bishop from f8 to c5. I move my pawn from c2 to c3. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from c2 to c3. I move my knight from g8 to f6. Your turn.
You moved your knight from g8 to f6. I move my pawn from d2 to d4. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from d2 to d4. I move my pawn from e5 to d4. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from e5 to d4. I move my pawn from c3 to d4, capturing your pawn. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from c3 to d4, capturing my pawn. I move my bishop from c5 to b4 plus, putting you in check. Your turn.
You moved your bishop from c5 to b4, putting me in check. I move my bishop from c1 to d2, blocking the check. Your turn.
You moved your bishop from c1 to d2, blocking the check. I capture your bishop with my bishop, moving from b4 to d2. Your turn.
You captured my bishop with your bishop, moving from b4 to d2. I move my knight from b1 to d2, capturing your bishop. Your turn.
You moved your knight from b1 to d2, capturing my bishop. I move my pawn from d7 to d5. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from d7 to d5. I move my pawn from e4 to d5, capturing your pawn. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from e4 to d5, capturing my pawn. I move my knight from f6 to d5, capturing your pawn. Your turn.
You moved your knight from f6 to d5, capturing my pawn. I move my knight from f3 to e5, capturing your knight. Your turn.
You moved your knight from f3 to e5, capturing my knight. I move my knight from c6 to e5, capturing your knight. Your turn.
You moved your knight from c6 to e5, capturing my knight. I move my queen from d1 to e2. Your turn.
You moved your queen from d1 to e2. I move my queen from d8 to e7. Your turn.
You moved your queen from d8 to e7. I move my pawn from d4 to e5, capturing your knight. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from d4 to e5, capturing my knight. I move my knight from f6 to g4. Your turn.
You moved your knight from f6 to g4. I move my pawn from f2 to f4, attacking your knight. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from f2 to f4, attacking my knight. I move my knight from g4 to h6. Your turn.
You moved your knight from g4 to h6. I move my pawn from a2 to a3. Your turn.
pawn from a2 to a3. I move my pawn from a7 to a5. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from a7 to a5. I move my pawn from h2 to h3. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from h2 to h3. I move my pawn from f7 to f5. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from f7 to f5. I move my queen from e2 to h5 plus, putting you in check. Your turn.
You moved your queen from e2 to h5, putting me in check. I move my knight from h6 to f7, blocking the check. Your turn.
You moved your knight from h6 to f7, blocking the check. I move my queen from h5 to f7, capturing your knight. Your turn.
You moved your queen from h5 to f7, capturing my knight. I move my king from e8 to d8. Your turn.
You moved your king from e8 to d8. I move my pawn from e5 to e6. Your turn.
You moved your pawn from e5 to e6. I move my rook from h8 to e8. Your turn.
You moved your rook from h8 to e8. I move my queen from f7 to f5. Your turn.
You moved your queen from f7 to f5. I move my rook from e8 to e6, capturing your pawn. Your turn.
You moved your rook from e8 to e6, capturing my pawn. I move my rook from a1 to d1. Your turn.
You moved your rook from a1 to d1. I move my bishop from c8 to d7. Your turn.
You moved your bishop from c8 to d7. I move my queen from f5 to f8 plus, putting you in check. Your turn.
You moved your queen from f5 to f8, putting me in check. I move my rook from e6 to e8, blocking the check. Your turn.
You moved your rook from e6 to e8, blocking the check. I move my queen from f8 to f7. Your turn.
You moved your queen from f8 to f7. I move my queen from e7 to f7, capturing your queen. Your turn.
You moved your queen from e7 to f7, capturing my queen. I move my rook from d1 to d7, capturing your bishop. Your turn.